When we get to learn how to live in Godfidence, we get rid of self-fidence, and we get to actually be free, and we get to live from a place of complete freedom. We don't have to do anything for anything because we just get to live in freedom. So anyway, the first thing I want to talk about is what's the difference between self-confidence and God-confidence. See, self-confidence is being in awe of yourself. God-confidence is being in awe of God. It's a mindset shift. It's a focus shift, because when we become in awe of ourselves, while in a sense it's good if it's rooted from being in awe of God, it starts with being in awe of God, it's from the foundation of being in awe of God. But when people are in awe of themselves without being in awe of God, they work and they strive for all kinds of stuff, and it can be good stuff like moral, like Asher was saying, moral righteousness, works of moral righteousness. Like that doesn't do anything. And self-confidence, through self-confidence, we will try to work for stuff that's already accomplished. We will try to do something to make something happen because, well, we're self-confident ourselves. Now, I used to be I was actually more self-confident than I was God-confident for a season. And I would just mess stuff up, and then I go into this condemnation and shame, like, I'm just not worthy, I can't do it, I can't do this, I can't do this. What am I saying if I say I can't do this? I, right? And it's a focus. So when we become in awe of God, that's the foundation of God confidence, because when you are confident in God, completely 100% confident in God, you don't have to try to prove yourself. See, self-confidence tries to prove itself because, like, for example, as guys, as men, you will relate to this. When you walk out, when you're around a beautiful woman and you're self-confident, you're going to try to prove yourself to that woman. And it's like going to be like this nervous thing, kind of like trying to prove yourself. And it just doesn't work. I'm sorry. And also with business, if you go into a business meeting and you try to prove yourself and you try to make yourself sound good and prove yourself, it just doesn't work. Because it's about God confidence. Because when you're confident in God, you get to sit back and rest, and you get to just be yourself, and you don't have to prove anything. And when you get to be yourself, because when you're most aware of Him, you're actually most aware of who you are.
Whoa, that's true.
And when you get to most aware of who you are, you get to actually just live freely and flow from Him.
Yeah.
That's why so it's basically, Godfidence is when we aren't controlled by anything, and yet we are compelled by love. So I'm going to talk about what does it look like to not be controlled by anything. Like Jesus, He wasn't controlled by what people thought. He walked and he didn't care. He was carefree. There's a difference between not caring and actually having compassion on people. Because He was so carefree that he was in this boat in the middle with His disciples in the middle of a storm, and He was sleeping because He didn't care. Because the problem wasn't big enough, because He was Godfident. He knew who His daddy was. And because He sat where with His daddy, he looked at the waves and said, "Be still." What do you mean? There was nothing, no striving. A self-confident person would have been standing there, "Be still in Jesus' name, come on right now," and trying to make the words or whatever, trying to make it work. We don't have to try to make it work. We get to rest in who we are, who He is. Because He paid everything so we can be Godfident. We can actually sleep through the storm because the storm isn't the problem. Like Bob Hartley had this vision. One vision I remember from Bob Hartley is when he talked about, he saw God on His throne and God was happy to be God. And He was just enjoying Himself. And Bob's like, well, what about the problems of the world? Because God didn't seem to be concerned. And then he saw a vision of a little dot beside God's head. And he's like he could just smush it like that. It's nothing. But we look at these anthills and we make them into mountains because we focus on ourselves. But when we're Godfident, we get to walk into situations and we get to plan and be sons. We get to walk as sons. We get to dream big and we get to flow in it and not have to worry. There's no worry in that. Because God is the one who is our provider. And it comes down to believing in the name of Jesus, because when we believe, we get salvation. And salvation is the fullness, complete fullness of life. And only to the point that you believe will you experience the salvation that he has for you, that he paid for you to have. And so when we sit back and we rest in him and his identity and who he is, the very identity of Jesus, we actually get to see who we are, and we get to walk in the fullness, complete fullness of salvation, where there's no care in the world. We don't have to prove ourselves, and we don't have to worry about diddly squat. So that's what it's about. That's the goodness of God. And that's where we get to walk into, and that's where we get to walk from. Then the second thing is being compelled by love. See, not only aren't we controlled by anything anymore, we're not controlled by any problems, but we're compelled by love. Because love, like Jesus with his disciples, he had a plan to go be with his daddy, and he was walking along, but people followed him, and he says he looked at them and he had compassion on them, and so he preached, and he taught them the ways of God. He taught them the ways of goodness, and then he realized that they're hungry and they needed food. Now, you could say, well, Jesus made a mistake. He didn't think about the fact that people are going to get hungry. He should have planned about that. But no, the problem wasn't a big deal. Disciples thought it was a big deal. We're like, well, we'd have to pay all of this salary just to feed all these people. There's no way we're going to do that. But what did he say? Oh, what do we have? Completely carefree. What do we have? Well, we have these fishes and these loaves. Well, okay, we'll just do it. Okay, here you go. He blessed it, and there it was. Because the problem, self-confidence makes the problem, an anthill into a mountain. But it's really nothing. Because we get to be compelled by love. See, when somebody's not controlled by anything, but they're not compelled by love, they end up being big jerks. But when they're compelled by love, they get to walk in this place of complete love, where they're moved by compassion, and their plans get changed because they can make the plans, but God builds the path. Because like me coming back from Joy Group, I had a plan to go to bed early and get up early the next morning to get some stuff done. And God changed that plan. But I didn't care because I was compelled by love. Because the problem of work I had to get done the next day wasn't big enough for me to be worried. And in fact, no problem is big enough for us to be worried. So that's like when we walk in the Godfidence and the confidence of God, we literally can walk into any situation and we have the answer. And we get to just be carefree and just sit back and be in bliss. That's the point of the cross. We're in bliss. He paid it. And we get to just walk in that humility, and it comes from a place of completely surrendering ourselves to him and giving up ourselves and our own rights to be mad at a problem. And we get to give up our theology, and because sometimes we let theology think that we're better than other people because we have a better theology. We may have a better theology, but that's not what matters. Because when we're focused on God, it doesn't matter, because love is what matters. Compassion is what matters. And so we get to walk in compassion, have every answer to every problem. And it's something that I'm in a journey of learning, and I'm enjoying it so much because Global Celebration has helped me a ton. Now, I don't know, how much time do I have? I still have a minute. Okay, we'll go for it. So basically, when we get to dream with God, and we get to have these ideas, and like we were talking about witty inventions, like the anointing of witty inventions. I got the feeling a lot of you in here already have witty inventions, but the problem was too big to actually accomplish it because you're focused on self. I know I've had, but the problem was too big to accomplish it because I was focused on myself. But when we can become God-focused, we can look at those and we can just go after it, and it doesn't matter. Because see, the most successful people in the world, when they have an idea, they just go after it. And they fail a lot. But then they get it right because they don't care about the failing. So when we stop worrying about the problem and caring about the problem, we can actually be the solution.
Come on.
And then we get to walk in that, and we get to live in it, and it just comes freedom and joy and bliss and goodness.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you're probably going to want to follow me on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. Facebook, like the page. It's going to be an amazing journey that we're going to be going on here. And also, if you want to go deeper into this, if you want to actually, I put together this set of 40 verses that the devil doesn't want us to believe. Because if we believe them, we're actually going to experience the fullness of life. And so I went through these 40 verses myself. They changed my life. I would go through them every day for about a couple months, and it absolutely changed the way I thought. And I decided to put them together for you. You can go download them. There's a link in the description. It's basically sonofroyalty.com. Below this video, I'll put a link. sonofroyalty.com/40, then one of those dashes verses, I think is where it's at. Anyway, it's going to be amazing because, well, hey, the Bible, the truth is amazing. It sets us free. So yeah, go there, get it, download it, sign up. It'll be amazing. Yeah, I'm out. My name is Justin Miller, and I approve this message.